Good morning and welcome again to Paul T's World. And in this video we're going to have a slow, leisurely walk around the garden in mid-June. On the patio I've got the tiger lilies, which will be out shortly. Every day as I pass I just check to see if there are any lily beetles. The pond is all filling out now. The flag iris on the left hand side, the yellow natural flag iris. Straight ahead looking at the Weigela. Weigelas flower very early on in the summer. Set off with the Japanese willow with a lovely white leaves. We can see the foxgloves showing through on my new woodland area. Foxgloves flower in June. Alliums are over. I planted these alliums early on in the spring and they've grown up and flowered straight away. Red peonies, grown by a neighbour, looking gorgeous. I put lots of London Pride around the bed to hold the soil in, because the soil is very thin in this garden, not very deep at all. And to get extra depth I need to grow things at the side to hold the soil in. Oh, and there's an oriental poppy behind. It's self-seeded. These are the irises, the blue irises that are in the pond. Those yellow flowers. Really nice, all self-seeded, very invasive, so I'll make sure that I pull a lot of these out before they set seed. But they give a really good show, as does the Weigela every year. Once it's finished flowering, I will just prune it back a little bit, tidy it up. It'll grow new stems, it'll take the flowers next year. And Grandma's necklace, the Himalayan honeysuckle, is just starting to put out its flowers. I really like that plant, but it does self-seed around the garden. Oh, and this is the new woodland area that I planted up just early on this year. The foxgloves, they're biennial, so they were growing last year and flower this year. That's the colour of the wild ones in Britain. You can get other colours such as white and multicoloured ones. And here amongst we've got the hellebores, epimedium, lords and ladies, all sorts of woodland plants. I'm really pleased with it. It's really filled in its first year. I only planted this up in February, March. Moving back now to the white Weigela. Grows strongly every year. Must be about 7 feet tall now. Panning round to the lawn bed, that bed that I dug just early on this year. I think I dug this in March. I have a series of videos showing how it's been dug and developed. various plants. That's a dogwood, some geranium. Again, this was bought just early on this year and it's decided to flower straight away. The very leggy lace cap hydrangea that I moved from the front garden. Suffered a little bit from having been moved and the drought we had early on this year and the sun scorching the leaves, but in fact it's just simply grown new leaves. The cistus is doing really well. It's already started to flower again. I bought that one at a garden centre early on in the year, grown well, flowered straight away. The phloxes were ordered online. As soon as I put them in, they've started growing up, as have the creeping phlox. This is the creeping phlox. The lawn's just starting to look a little bit brown. We don't water the lawns in Britain. They'll always recover. We haven't had much rain here in the northwest this year so far. So that bed is now waiting for me to plant the plug plants that I ordered online. All the perennials to fill in this bed this year. Over towards the wild hedge that I planted many years ago. This is the bridal wreath spirea. Gorgeous white flowers in early spring, and behind is the variegated weigela. I actually really trimmed this back, cut it back quite a long way last year. I thought it would flower the following year, which is now, but what it's done is it's really bushed up but not flowered. I'm okay with that because the flowers next year are going to be glorious. Just see the shed bed in the background. This was empty early on this year. And looking through the archway, there's a lot of the cuttings I've been doing in the garden over the last few months, and I'll shred all those when I've got some time. And the shreddings will then be put on the borders. And this masquerade that I moved from another part of the garden where it wasn't happy, it's now grown up 1 or 2 feet and flowered straight away. And look at the different colours on the petals. They start off yellow and move through to red. The elderflower behind the obelisk, and the honeysuckle growing up the archway that really needs repainting. Maybe I'll have to do that later on in the year when I can cut the honeysuckle back. Honeysuckle scents in the evening, designed to attract the moths. And looking over the whole garden is the magnificent silver birch. And a large poplar next door. No contrails from planes. There are now planes passing over, not many, but they're just starting now after the lockdown. And this plant is doing really well, the ornamental elderberry. Pleased with that because I've paid it more attention, given it more food and water this year, and it's responded. Oh, let's have a look at the wall and the Mexican fleabane that's growing out of the wall, and a hazel tree just covering the top of the wall. I'll coppice that hazel tree behind next year. Oh, and down below we've got the ivy-leafed toadflax. Lovely little plant. It'll cover that whole wall. Those perennials I ordered online, really small, are starting to grow well, and even showing flowers at the top. That's the agastache. And behind, the fernleaf bleeding heart, still in flower, flowers longer than the other bleeding heart, dicentra, And behind we've got the perennial wallflower, yellow and white. Oh, exciting when you plant small plants and watch them grow, because they grow inches and inches every day. That one has already flowered. It had a lovely yellow flower. So I'll be filling this in with perennials in another week. So this is the lawn bed. It's looking fairly empty, but all these plants have got to grow up and fill it. Little creeping, what is it? A creeping phlox, that one. Decided to flower straight away. That other deciduous azalea starting to grow from the base, which is very encouraging. And some cosmos that a neighbour grew from seed. I've pinched those out to encourage them to put on lots of side shoots. And in fact, some of the pinched out stems I've just popped in the ground to see if they'll take as well. As well as the London Pride, I have these little log rolls just to build up the sides a little bit so I can put extra soil in these beds so they're a little deeper. And here are the plug plants. I think they're ready to be planted. It's been quite a lot of work over April and May because we had those cold temperatures. I kept having to put them in the potting shed and bring them out. Most of them have taken. I'm really pleased, getting 6 out of 6 on most of these. The root systems are fine and they're ready to put in they're ready to plant up in the beds. Over by the potting shed I planted a Ceanothus California lilac. I wanted an evergreen plant here to just soften this area of the garden, and it started to flower, flowering rather late this year. This is early in the morning, 7 o'clock, and the bees are already on the Ceanothus. They love the Ceanothus. Oh, and just behind we've got a little laburnum seedling just resting on the back of the Ceanothus there. Lots of little seedlings from the laburnum, and I've transplanted some of them to grow up the archway. Magnificent flower, the laburnum, in the spring with the yellow racemes hanging down. Now this is a lovely coloured Weigela. I couldn't resist the colour of those leaves. This was at a nursery, and I have decided where to put that, so I'll show you that later. And here's some more tiger lilies in a pot. Again, if you have these lilies, look out for the lily beetle, those red lily beetles. You have to take them off. They're easy to take off. Otherwise the leaves will be decimated. And I've popped a little obelisk here of sweet peas. Some of the sweet peas have been grown from seed, and some just bought at a garden centre as little plug plants. So I grow these because they smell gorgeous. Little brown patches on the lawn starting. Could do with some rain, but it's not happening at the moment. Apple tree on the right hand side. It's a cooking apple tree. Probably 80, 100 years old. As this whole area used to be an orchard. There's the rowan tree, my favourite tree. Well, second favourite tree. I do like my sweet gum as well. The lacecap hydrangea, which I took as a cutting a number of years ago from the hydrangea that's on the patio, always performs brilliantly. Do need to water it though. As soon as you see those leaves wilting at all, must water them. And guess what I planted next to the hydrangea? 3 tree lilies, and here they are. I didn't know whether they would come up. I ordered the bulbs online in March, and here they are. They can get to 7 feet tall, but apparently not in the first year, so maybe they might get to 3 or 4 feet this year. Very exciting, totally new, never done that before. The rowan or mountain ash has finished flowering, and it'll now spend the next couple of months setting its berries, those gorgeous red berries. Excellent tree for a small garden. Fine leaves so it doesn't create a lot of shade, doesn't grow too big, very tolerant of all soils, native to Britain. And here we have the extended, the new and improved bed, the dahlia bed. The dahlias have been doing really well, and then a neighbour gave me some of his dahlias that he split, and I thought I need to extend this bed, so I brought it forward, and here are some of the new dahlias. Here in the northwest, near the coast, no need to lift the dahlias at all. They stay in the ground all year. And here are some supports. I've decided to try these supports. There's a link in the description below, an Amazon link, and I'm really pleased with them. We'll see how these dahlias grow through the supports. I don't know whether these particular supports are ideal for dahlias, but they're working well, and I might use them on other perennials that start growing high. Another dahlia in the background just to the right of the hydrangea, and the mahonia is behind. In the foreground we've got the daylilies. Tough as old nails, don't need to water them, don't need to feed them. And behind, a smoke bush. Flowers just starting. It's called a smoke bush because these flowers look like little clouds of smoke when they fully come out. Love the leaves on these smoke bush. Cotinus. Particularly after rain when the droplets just sit there. And here I planted years ago a clematis up this bridal wreath, Spirea. And all of a sudden, here we are, out of the blue, 3 flowers of the clematis. I'd totally forgotten about it. Back there is a laburnum that I planted from a seedling a number of years ago. Just passing a lilac, and here is the magnolia. Of course, these flower really early in the season, sometimes too early because the frosts get to the blooms. The heucheras down here, I did a lot with these heucheras this year. I mentioned in another video that I was going to learn about them and see what you do, and so I thinned them out, cut the old leaves off, took some cuttings, just cut off some stems and planted them, and everything worked. There, we're just looking through at a stem that I literally cut off one of these other ones, popped it in the ground, and it started to grow. I've just managed to get a hosta in there amongst the roots of the magnolia. And this is the large, really old, big-leafed lacecap hydrangea on the patio. It's done really well. I've actually moved it twice because when I had the patio built, I had to move this out of the way. A few months later, popped it back in its place. The Bill Mackenzie clematis starting to flower with its little yellow bells. I cut this back in very early spring, right back to about 2 feet from the ground, and it grows all the way up and flowers in one season. Moving through to the front garden now, this is the Paul Scarlet Climbing Rose. It doesn't repeat flower, but it does hold its flowers for a long time. Doesn't drop the petals, they just stay there. Oh, and it doesn't scent either. Here's the azalea bed. I'm really filling this up now. I know there's a peony right there. It shouldn't be there. It'll be moved. But all the others are rhododendrons and azaleas. Deciduous azaleas and evergreen azaleas. I've just recently bought and planted this rhododendron here because of the colour of the flowers, to contrast with the red flowers of these other azaleas. The choicea with the yellow leaves getting really big now. You can cut that back as you like, and of course it scents beautifully when in flower early in the year. Moving down onto the lawn in the front garden, here's the Cherokee, the dogwood Cherokee. Lovely bright leaves, and these turn to a reddish colour later on in the year. The rambling rose down by the road, growing nicely through the hawthorn. So the hawthorn has just finished flowering, and now the rambling rose takes over. The Cornus controversa variegata wedding cake tree has little white flowers. So the lavender's just starting up in flower. Really looking forward to seeing the bees and the butterflies on the lavender this summer. The sound of summer, bees on lavender. The ceanothus in the front garden is doing well. I planted this a number of years ago to hide the car. I don't want to see my car when I'm walking around the garden, so a nice large evergreen shrub really improves the view, and the bees love it, of course. And here's the pathway up to the house. On the right hand side the lavender, left hand side we've got bright leaves on the euonymus, potentilla flowering nicely, past its best. It actually flowers better earlier in the year. And then a really nice shocking pink lace cap hydrangea. That's from a cutting as well, from the one on the patio. Another weigela. This one is probably the most common one. Grows really large. Cut it back as you like. Little geranium tucked in along the pathway. Passing up towards the front door, we've now got the Philadelphus, obviously for its scent. A little bit of blue growing through, that's the Lithodora that's climbing up the Philadelphus. Antirrhinum, snapdragons. classic British cottage garden plant. Bees love them, as they do the Cotoneaster here, the horizontalis. Nice view of the dogwood in the background. Oh, and the controversa. Another little choicea here, Ternata, and this is a sandstone wall I had built. And of course the star of the show near the front door are the two climbing roses. They've really enjoyed the heavy pruning back I did late last year. I've given them plenty of food, horse manure and water. Scents beautifully both of these climbing roses, and this one is Dancing Queen. The blooms don't last that long, but it reblooms time after time through the summer. The Paniculata hydrangea in the pot is doing well. It's going to flower. And look at this container that I put together with the canna lily. First time I've had canna lilies. A neighbour gave me this when he split his canna lilies. Very exciting when you have new plants that you haven't had before. These sort of plants always remind me of the seaside. Again, the bees love these plants. And I've just put it at the top of my sandstone wall. Plenty of thick shrubs here between my garden and the next door neighbour's garden for privacy. Passing some osteospermum which are out in flower now. The fuchsia on the left hand side I pruned back a lot last year and it's now filled out again. Last of the azaleas on the right hand side there, the red one, that one flowers a lot later than the others. And I'm really pleased with this hosta. It just grows bigger and bigger every year. So I'm covering the whole of the top of the wall, just pulling off bits of this creeping phlox and just popping it in the soil, and then it takes. Just make sure you water it until it gets established. One of my favourites, the Pyracantha, firethorn. Growing along the wall there. It's not attached to the wall. It self-supports. Lots of frothy flowers. Bees love to walk along the flowers. Don't even need to fly from one to the other. And the rambling rector here growing, rambling rose, growing up the pergola here, is doing well this year. Very vigorous, and I'm growing it in a pot. Give it lots of water, lots of food. And it's happy. You can grow lots in pots that really you shouldn't be able to, as long as you give them enough food and water. So that's been in this pot for 15 years. And behind are the aces. Every now and again I take them out of the pot, refresh with compost, ericaceous compost for aces, rainwater only. Oh, and here's the Crimson Queen. It's going to look great this year. Later on it'll go fire red, all those leaves. So the aces don't like wind, so keep them out of the wind, otherwise the leaves will be scorched and curl up. A last check for lily beetle on these tiger lilies. Because they're in a pot, plenty of food and water for them. And a last look at the plug plants before they're planted in the shed bed and the lawn bed. I hope you've enjoyed this leisurely walk around my English garden in mid-May, early in the morning, 6:45. And I hope to see you next time in Paul T's World. Bye!